BYU athletic department is experiencing a golden era. Football finished ranked 12th. The basketball team is one of the best in the country, and the list goes on. At the head of the success is athletic director Tom Holmoe. He sat down with Jarom in this week's Cougar Conversation.
Okay, Tom, thanks for spending some time here with me. Tell me a little bit about your playing days at BYU. I think a lot of people know, hey, you used to be the coach of Cal, you're the athletic director here, and but I don't think people know as much about, especially for my generation, hey, you were quite the defensive back in your day here at BYU.
I think these student athletes here have a hard time believing this skinny little old man used to be a defensive back for BYU in the olden days. So I keep a leather helmet on my credenza in my office and tell them that was my helmet. And some of them believe it. It was a great time to come to BYU. This was 1978 when I first came, so Lavelle had established a pretty darn good team by that time, and it was kind of a matter of keeping it up and building on the traditions of BYU football. But we had some super players, great coaching staff, and that combination made for some darn good teams. But individually for me, you know, I had some highlights that I felt were fun for me, but most of my memories are really surround the teams that I played on and the championships that we won, and there's some marvelous times.
I've heard that you don't have an ACL in one of your knees. How did you play in the NFL without an ACL?
Well, this is a long story, but here at BYU, I had some cartilage damage my senior year, so I kind of struggled through my senior year, but back in those days, you couldn't just do a quick scope and be back on the field. So I just kind of, you know, bit on the bullet for a little bit and got through the year. And then I played in the Hula Bowl. And in that game, you know, I had a pretty good significant injury, came back, the swelling went down. Doc Pratley did the surgery here, and my knee was in good shape. And then I had to get from that surgery to a point to be ready to work out for the pro team. So I pushed it really hard. And sometime between my surgery and trying out for the teams, I tore my ACL. You know, and people say it's not very hard to come back from a little scope, but for me, it was killing me. But I didn't realize that I had torn my ACL. So the 49ers drafted me kind of sight unseen without doing a physical, and then after they drafted me, I went for my physical, and the doctor said, "You don't have an ACL." I said, "Well, that's what I've heard," because many other teams had done physicals with me, and they said, you know, it's not wise to do surgery, and I had rehabbed it on my own, and I was running. So they taped my knee up for 5 years, right to the skin every day, and I played with tape, no brace. Then my last 2 years I played without the tape, and that kind of wore me down. But I was slowing down with the tape. After 5 years, I figured if I can get another year or two in running fast, I'll be okay. And so that's how it goes. And I've been blessed. My knee's been strong, and really no injuries that kept me out of any games my whole career.
So to this day, do you still have issues with it at all?
To this day, no ACL. And you know, I'm not the most mobile 50-year-old, but I don't play basketball or tennis, but I can play golf, and I do a lot of exercise, but nothing that's really going to be grinding on my knee.
So after you were grad assistant here, you did some with the 49ers, if I'm not mistaken. Then you're the head coach at Cal, and you actually played BYU a couple of times, one time here. What was that like for a former BYU player to coach Cal against BYU in this stadium?
Well, you know, there was a lot of hype about it before the whole year leading up to it, especially about the month before. And I tried to avoid it because it wasn't about me, it was about the team. But I tell you what, when I stepped onto that field, it was weird being in the visitors' locker room and then coming on the field, being on the visitors' sideline. And it was a good game. They came out on top, but I'll never forget that experience of meeting Lavelle at midfield.
Are you done with coaching forever?
I'm still coaching. I'm not officially a coach, but I'm still coaching. And I doubt that I'd ever go back to officially being a coach unless it was Little League or something like that.
Could Lavelle Edwards Stadium ever be expanded? And if so, how would it be done?
I think Lavelle Edwards Stadium could be expanded at some point in time. Right now, we've sold out for 3 years in a row, but quite frankly, I think we'd have to sell out like 10 years in a row. Right now, there's not a waiting list of 10,000 people, and that's what you'd have to get to. We would probably expand on the sidelines and put up like an upper deck. A lot of people say you could just easily fill in the corners, but the corners of stadiums aren't the greatest seats or sight lines. So this is one of those things where you're dreaming. This is way future. You might talk 10, 15 years from now. But we have to keep that program rolling. And I'd say maybe 10 years of sellouts with 10,000 people on a waiting list, might be able to do it.
Well, Tom, thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
It's great. Thank you for having me. It's great to be a Cougar.
Unbelievable that he played 7 years in the NFL with no ACL. Holmoe recently added the University of Texas to BYU's 2011 football schedule to be played in Austin. It's a ways away, but BYU fans are always excited for a challenge.